It was 2023 and I had just gotten back from a European tour. The shows were good, the vibe was good, and the gear was, well,
not quite as I left it.
What it usually is. I was lugging my 40-pound pedalboard on planes, cars, and even a train throughout the UK and Europe, and with all that travel wear and tear, I'm sure you can guess what happened. I had a cable go down at a very inopportune time. I switched my patch and then boom, no sound. And this didn't happen once, but several times throughout the tour. You'd see me leaning over, reaching down for my cables, trying to wiggle one back to life. And yeah, if you've seen my European vlog video, then you know those clips are actually of me looking for my capo, but you get the idea. I'm tired of patch cables and I should probably just tape my capo to my body. So I returned from tour and I decided I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna take the plunge. I went over to Sweetwater and I ordered a Quad Cortex, and it came and I was honestly immediately blown away. No, if you see my channel, you know that's not true. It was not love at first sight. But I would keep at it, and slowly but surely I found myself getting more comfortable in the Quad Cortex and getting it closer and closer to how I wanted it to sound. At about 3 months in, I figured, well, I guess this is as good as it's gonna sound. It's not my pedalboard, but whatever. Obviously, that was completely wrong, but I didn't know that yet. The Quad Cortex was providing me with some very good tones to use live. It was easy to pack up and take with me. But when it came to recording guitar at home, I was never reaching for it. The Quad Cortex was solely a live device. It wasn't gonna replace my tried and true pedalboard rig. I made some small gains in the Quad Cortex over the next couple of months, mainly driven by this channel. For whatever reason, the YouTube algorithm was really loving my videos on the Quad Cortex. And yes, I use the term loving very loosely. Belle Starr. But I couldn't keep posting the same thing over and over and over again. So that forced experimentation ended up being a really good thing for me, because in my heart of hearts, I wasn't actually satisfied with my tone. I was happy with my amp sounds, I was happy with my drive sounds, but I wasn't fully happy with the delay and reverb sounds I had dialed in. Reverbs were definitely not on par. A lot of tweaking with the reverbs.
Struggle with the reverbs?
Well, one day I saw a video by Vertex Effects on wet dry rigs, and I thought to myself, I wonder if I could do this type of thing in the Quad Cortex, and if by doing that it might solve my delay and reverb issue. So I started throwing my delays and reverbs in parallel, and I was much happier with the results. Maybe it was the fun of chasing down realistic tones in the Quad Cortex, the algorithm favoring my videos on the Quad Cortex, or just my desire to eventually sell preset products.
We could just get one of Justin Mussey's presets.
But I felt compelled to get my QC tone to that S tier level. That's when I decided to do the thing. I sat down with the Quad Cortex and decided to build a rig from the ground up that was meant to be a one-for-one recreation of my pedalboard rig. I spent hours and hours and hours A/Bing different effects, messing around with the EQ to get the frequency response of the amps to sound more like my real amp. I don't think I've ever spent an hour dialing in one amp sound, but I just did that. Tweaking the settings I had for modulation, delay, reverb, so that the sounds would rival the Strymon Mobius, Timeline, and Bigsky. Now for that secret sauce. It was a tedious process, but the end results were pretty stellar. The JM Pedalboard preset has become my top-selling Quad Cortex preset, and I can definitely see why. This is the first rig I've built in the QC that truly felt like me. The amps responded how I wanted them to, the effects were close if not near identical, and probably best of all, because I had essentially put my pedalboard rig into the Quad Cortex, I felt right at home when I was programming scenes, just like I would with my pedalboard and my MIDI switcher. Now, about 7 months into owning the device, I finally felt like I was losing very little, if anything, whenever I used the Quad Cortex over my pedalboard. But you know, the job is never finished, so I decided to go back to the drawing board to see if I could get the QC to just that next level of realism. So rather than using the built-in models and captures, I decided I would utilize the neural capture technology to capture my own pedals and amps. So I began the process again, and I do think that I was actually able to push the needle a little bit further into the realism category, but it's just a preference thing at the end of the day. Of course, the captures aren't perfectly identical replications, but they sure are close. And by taking a drive pedal and dialing it in based off how it sounded through the capture of my amp and then capturing that drive pedal, I finally felt like I was able to have really good control over the end product. Now that was a bunch of guitar mumbo jumbo, but I'm hoping that made sense to a few of you because that was actually a pretty good tip. And for the rest of you, I'm sorry. Anyway, capturing my own drives and my own amp, paired with some tweaks in the modulation, delay, and reverb settings I had, yielded some pretty fantastic results. If you weren't listening for differences between the two of these, then you probably wouldn't notice them. I haven't used my Pedalboard live in about a year now, and it's actually been great.
This is a lot of work. You should just get the neural.
Those opportunities where I do get to play have mainly been at church recently, and in those applications, sometimes I do use a volume pedal with the Quad Cortex. But most of the time I just throw it on the ground. Well, not literally. I place it on the ground and that's been it. I plug in my guitar directly and I let it go. For those curious, I still am using the JM Worship patch in those instances. The only small modification I've made is add in a capture of my Delta King 12 as a stereo amp option. It's really not that necessary. It was just fun and I was curious to see how it would sound. Outside of church, I do use the Quad Cortex on just about every video on this channel, so you and I both hear it all the time, and it's been great. I don't know how many more times I can say that. It's been great. I'm a very happy customer.
Good morning, QC.
Now, something I recently realized is sort of an underrated feature of any modeler is that it gives you access to effects that maybe wouldn't make sense for you to buy an individual pedal of because you don't use them very often. So in those rare instances where you do want to play something different or try something new, you can load up that effect and be on your way. We recently got update CorOS 3.0.0, which means plugin support has finally arrived. And while I don't have a plugin that's currently compatible yet, all the new effects they've added in this update are pretty awesome. I wonder if this would work on a guitar. So this is a C. Oh my gosh, this did not work. I am playing a C sharp and it basically moved it to a D. Look, see? It's so fast. The Quad Cortex really does keep getting better, which is very cool. I'm super excited to see where the unit's at in the next year, 2 years, and who knows where it'll be after that. If you enjoyed any of the sounds you heard today, the links to those presets are in the description. And if you're willing, I'd really appreciate it if you leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new, and I'll catch you next time. Oh.